Hello, people. Just Glenn here, giving you a little update on the Tetra Society COVID-19 Critical Relief Fund fundraiser that we're running. We're a little over $8,200 total in donations, and been running about a month. We've got about another month to go, a month and a few days to go in the campaign. Thank you to all of you who have donated. We've got probably $6,200, just over $6,200 in cash donations, and a little over $2,000 in PPE donations. And I'll give a shout out to a couple people later in the week about that. In my last video, I mentioned I was going to talk to you about some of the unintended consequences of COVID-19 pandemic on people with disabilities. I guess first off to start saying is that I don't think, my personal opinion, you can disagree with me and shut me off and don't listen to me anymore. But I don't think we're doing a very good job at keeping social distance. I don't think we're doing that great a job of opening up gradually. On warmer days, I see thousands of people out and about. Talk to other people who see thousands of people out and about. There was that debacle down at Trinity Bellwoods Park in Toronto. Our own mayor in Mississauga hosting an end to Eid Mubarak, which was a great attempt, I think, at keeping social distance, but with over 4,000 cars kind of joining a train and a whole bunch of people meeting on the side, it wasn't the greatest effort in terms of social distancing. Our numbers are going up. Numbers everywhere are going up, not just in Ontario here, but everywhere. And it doesn't spell out good things for people like myself and other people with disabilities. So at any rate, I'll tell you a little story that I heard. I actually read it on Facebook. One of the unintended consequences of COVID. So, as you know, schools are all shut down in terms of in-person attendance at class, and lots of schools and universities have gone to online learning and homeschooling. Not a good thing for people with disabilities, especially those who are challenged with, different disabilities, being blind or deaf or using screen readers, even somebody that's autistic and is not able to follow a lesson on a computer screen. But this particular story was about someone who was blind attending one of the most prestigious universities in Ontario. They didn't mention the name, but I'm going to say that one of the most prestigious has got to be either Queen's, U of T, maybe Western, but I think one of Queen's or U of T probably. And as I said, they're blind and trying to follow along with lectures online. The professor puts their notes online as well as pictures and diagrams and different things, but doesn't really explain the diagrams at all. Just says, in this diagram here, you'll see, and then just goes on to talk about it and how it affects the lesson that he's teaching, so on and so forth. And this individual student went to the professor and said, listen, I'm blind, I'm having trouble following along. If you could be a little bit more descriptive in your lesson about some of your charts and some of your pictures and the way that some of your notes and lessons are laid out. And the professor said, fine, no problem. Next two lectures that he put on, exact same thing. And so the student was having a real difficult time following along. So they went to accessibility services at the school. And accessibility services said, well, we'll get you the book, the textbook for the class, and we'll scan it to allow you to be able to read the textbook. And then they went back to the professor and said, look, we've got the textbook now and we want to scan along the lessons. So kind of what page are you referring to? If you could do a referral of pages in your lecture as to what particular page you're talking about, that would be great. And the professor came back at him and said, why didn't you ask me first about getting the textbook? Because I don't lecture on the textbook at all. Sure, there's similar parts in my lecture to different chapters in the textbook, but all of the tests and all of the assignments are specifically on my lecture notes. That way someone has to attend my class in order to pass it and not just buy the textbook, read the textbook and memorize it, and then pass the course by doing a final exam. So here's this person that has put out as much money as everybody else, has gone to the professor several times, has gone to Accessible Learning Services to try and get some help in terms of a modification to the lecture so that they can follow along in the lecture better. And they're probably going to fail the course to no fault of their own. And to be all fairness to the professor, they're probably not in the least bit prepared to do online courses and teach virtually through e-learning and online learning. So the professor has no experience at this. The e-learning is a debacle for someone who is blind. Accessibility Services has no idea how to deal with it. And here's this person that's laid out, tons of cash for this course, trying to improve their lot in life and their education. And, they're likely going to fail and have all that money pretty much wasted. So those are one of the little stories about the unintended consequences for people with disabilities. I talk a lot about opening up too quick and people having trouble getting out and buying groceries. All those things are all true. But this is a little story that I told you just now about something that you don't really think about, you don't really expect. And so I wanted to share that and finish up with saying, listen, folks, we really can do this. We can do better. And we can be better Canadians. We can be better at opening up slowly. And we can be better at keeping our distance, staying at home when we can or when we need to, and not flooding parks and downtown and playground areas that are not really even open. So please, 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 folks, be mindful of how you're expanding your circle and opening yourself up to the world a bit more. I know we can't stay inside forever, but let's find the happy medium. Let's all stay well, let's all stay safe, and let's all do this together and prosper on the other side of this. Thanks very much for listening, and have a good night.